Alright, so in this video we're going to start looking at solving two-step equations. So this is combining our additive and multiplicative properties that we practiced in the last couple of videos. We are actually going to practice the additive property right here. So we're going to be doing two steps from here on out. So first we're going to look at addition, subtraction, and then we're going to look at multiplication, division. And our goal is always to get the variable by itself. I want to know what does that variable equal. In order to know that, I need to move all of these other pieces away from it. In order to move them away from it, and what I mean by move away is to the other side of the equal sign, I'm going to do the opposite of what's being done. Basically, I'm undoing these things. W is multiplied by 2. I want to unmultiply by 2. There was 11 added to this doubled W, so I want to subtract 11. Because I want to go back to the beginning. What was W before all these things happened to it? Okay. So identify what is being added or subtracted from the variable. That's our first step. So kind of already pointed at the variable there. There's W. It's 2W plus 11. So 11 is being added. So we have 11 here. The opposite operation, because that's always what we're looking for. We want to do the opposite to undo that, would be subtraction. So we're going to subtract 11 from both sides of the equal sign. Always think of this kind of like a little scale. There's sides here, and whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. Okay, that keeps it balanced. It keeps it equal. So I haven't done anything with 2W, so it's going to just drop down here. 11 minus 11, well, that's 0. That's what we wanted it to be. It's no longer on that side by the variable. 31 minus 11, well, that's going to give us 20. So now I want to look at the resulting equation and say, well, it's being multiplied or divided from the variable. So 2W, that means multiplication. Whenever I see a number and a variable smushed together like that, it means I'm multiplying by that number. So I'm multiplying by 2. And the inverse operation to move it to the other side is to divide, because that's the opposite of multiplication. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2. And again, sides of that equal sign, I want to make sure that I'm dividing it away from the left side here. I'm bringing it all the way over to the right side. So 2 divided by 2, any number divided by itself is 1. But the W is still there. We haven't done anything to that W. Equals 20 divided by 2 is 10. So before all these things happened to W, it was 10. Then we doubled it to make it 20. That's what the times 2 means. And then we added 11 to it to make it 31. So really what we're doing when we're solving equations, we're kind of going back to the beginning. We're saying, what was it before all of these things happened? Okay, we're just kind of backing up a little bit. All right, so we're going to do the additive property of equality with a negative coefficient. So that just, when I hear additive property, means I'm either going to add or subtract to solve this problem, but I have a negative coefficient. And what that means is negative y, when I see this 131 minus y, there's actually a 1 here. So the negative coefficient is this negative 1. So we are going to have to do something with that. So we're still going to do those kind of same steps here. We're looking at what's being added or subtracted from the variable. So the variable is y, and this is where some students make a mistake and they say, oh, 131 is being subtracted. Nope, y is being subtracted from 131. 131 is actually positive. Look at what's in front of the number to determine is it positive or negative, not behind the number. Okay, so 131 is actually being added. So I want to do the opposite, and I want to subtract 131 from both sides. So positive 131 minus 131, that cancels out. I do need to bring the negative down with the y. That negative does not disappear. Equals, and now I'm going to subtract. I get 4, and I get 0, 4, and then I get a 1. So I get 104, and it's positive because this is a positive 234, and I'm taking 131 away from it. So it's positive 104. Now we do have to deal with that negative 1 there. So that's my second question. What's being multiplied or divided by the variable? Well, in this case, it would be negative 1 is being multiplied. So what I want to do is divide by negative 1 on both sides, because I want to cancel that negative 1 out so that I just have y equals, and so it's a number divided by -1. Anything divided by 1 is going to be itself. But what happens with the negative is it turns that 104 to a -104. So that's that negative coefficient. We need to make sure we deal with that when that happens. All right, so now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to ask those same questions. So the first question is what's being added or subtracted on the same side as the variable. So here's my variable, and 8 is being added. So I'm going to do the opposite. I subtract 8 from both sides, and I get -2 minus 8, and I'm going to bring out my algebra tiles real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's 8. And then I have -2. So I have 2. So they're all negative though, right? All of these are negative. They represent ones. So if I counted them all up, I would end up with -10. So keep that in mind. If they're both negative, I'm going to add and keep the negative sign. I had -2. I went 8 more negative. So it's -10. The 2V's are just going to drop down here. 8 minus 8 cancels out. All right, now what's being multiplied or divided by the variable? It's 2. So that's being multiplied. So I'm going to divide because that's the opposite operation. So -10 divided by 2, that's going to be -5. So you can do 10 divided by 2 and you get 5. Since it was a negative divided by a positive, it's going to be a negative. And then 2 divided by 2 cancels, and we have V. All right, the next one's a little different because we're going to solve an equation to find the value of an expression. So we're going to do a couple of steps here. So first we're going to solve the equation for the variable. So here's our equation. And then we're going to use that solution to come over here and plug this in. So first let's solve our equation. So we're going to do the same thing. What's being added or subtracted on the same side as that variable? Well, 5 is being added, so I'm going to subtract. Whoop. -2u. Whoa, what is my pen doing here? Pen, stop it. There we go. It's got a mind of its own right now. All right, 7 minus 5, that gives me 2. And again, if you needed to use algebra tiles for that, you very well could, because you could set up, let's see if I can do this nicely. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7. Oh, I should have done those in yellow, darn it, because those are positive. And then here are my negatives. So I did the opposite color, sorry about that. So normally I do red as negative and yellow is positive. I just forgot to switch my colors when I drew that. It really doesn't matter what color the tiles are, as long as you know they are. And if you put the plus and minuses in there, that helps, because then you know exactly, which ones are positive and negatives. And you can go through and do the same thing that you've done before with algebra tiles and just cancel them out 1 to 1. So we cancel them out until there's no more that we can match up, and we say what's left over. So it's just 2, and again, they should be yellow so that it signifies better the positive, since that's what I've been doing for a couple chapters now. But it's 2 positives left over. All right, so now what's being multiplied or divided by the variable? Well, -2 is being multiplied, so I'm going to divide by -2, divide by -2. -2 divided by -2 cancels out and leaves the u by itself. 2 divided by -2, well, any number divided by itself is 1, but I do have to take that negative into account. It's going to be -1. All right, we're not done yet, because what they want to know is what does this expression equal? So find the value of 7u plus 3 given this equation. So we solved the equation. Now I have to plug it into 7u plus 3. So it's 7 times -1 plus 3. So I get -7. 7 times -1 is -7 plus 3. So here we can use some algebra tiles again. So I'll do 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's my -7s in the correct color. And then plus 3. Here's my 3 positives. Positive, positive, positive. And I'm going to cancel them out. 1 to 1, 1 to 1, 1 to 1. And I'm left with 4 negatives. So it's -4 is my answer. All right, so the last one here, we have simplify your answer as much as possible, and we are given that we have a fraction on one side and an integer, a -4 on the other side. So when the entire side of an equation is multiplied or divided by a number, we can use the opposite operation to clear that side of the equation. So instead of just immediately going to what's being added or subtracted, let's deal with this entire side being divided by 2, because that's going to simplify this problem. That's what we want to do first. So since the entire side's being divided by 2, I can multiply the entire side by 2 and this entire side by 2. And what that does is 2 divided by 2 cancels, becomes 1. So I have 3x plus 4 equals -4 times 2 is -8. So now I can start asking those questions that I've been asking. What's being added or subtracted? 4 is being added. So I'm going to subtract 4. It's going to stop letting me right here in just a second. Scooch that up. So I have 3x. 4 minus 4 cancels, and then -8 minus 4. So this would be the same deal. So this is -8, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 that we used earlier. And I had 2 on that problem. Now I have 4. So I can combine them. They're all negatives. So I would end up with -12. So now we have, and I'm going to scooch this over, 3x equals -12. So I'm multiplying by 3. I'm going to divide both sides by 3. X equals -12 divided by 3 is -4. All right, so that is solving 2-step equations with whole numbers, negative coefficients, integers, fractions. We did all kinds of practice there. And again, definitely use these algebra tiles, these types of visuals. They help you picture so much better what's going on in the problem and how to actually cancel these different types of pieces out. All right, go ahead and go on Alex and give that a try.